Okay. Hello and welcome to the video. My name is Wade Daniel Smith. And all right, as I stand before you today, I've had two strokes, so I am not what I was when I was 20 years old. But I am not lying when I tell you that I used to win a 1-on-2 handicap against two second degree black belts that were Okinawan style trained second degree black belts when I was 20 years old. Um, and in fact, it got to where Sensei would start giving them eskrima sticks in the one-on-one version of the fight, and I would have no weapon. This is an eskrima stick. I believe it's a 28-inch eskrima stick. And they attacked me one-on-one. In fact, one time they even attacked me two-on-one, and I beat them. But that was something kind of miraculous. But they would attack me one-on-one with eskrima sticks, and I would have no weapon, empty hands. And since they said if I get hit, I lose, and I had to disarm them. And so he started with the eskrima stick, giving it to Darren, who was the 155 pounder, uh, second degree black belt. And he knew how to use an eskrima stick correctly. He wasn't a dunce. And matter of fact, he would absolutely wreck anybody in the 155-pound class in the MMA right now in his prime. And I used to beat him pretty easily by the time I was black belt testing. And I was 185 pounds at the time, and I was circuit training just over 20 hours a week altogether, 15 hours a week in the dojo, and a little over 5 hours a week on my own time. And uh, disarming a 155-pound second degree black belt of an eskrima stick is actually pretty easy. I let him swing, and I catch his wrist. I step into the swing and catch his wrist and catch the stick right here, and then I front thrust kick him or knee strike him in the abdomen. Uh, Dojo rules was three-quarter contact, but we had to make special rules for me kicking anyone other than Matt or Sensei, and I had to kick less than 50% because one time I kicked Darren at about dojo rules at three-quarter contact for sparring purposes, and it left a bruise on his ribs so strong that it took him 2 weeks to heal up, and he couldn't spar at all for 2 weeks. And that's the only time I ever actually hit him three-quarter strength. And I really didn't even mean to do that, but he kind of stepped into it. And so we had to make new rules for me on kicking where I could only kick people 50% power other than Sensei Mark or Matt, because they were heavyweights. And I was only allowed to kick heavyweights at three-quarter power whenever I was a middleweight because my front thrust kick and my other kicks were so strong that it absolutely crippled anybody that I hit with it at even three-quarter strength. Uh, but to disarm him, I need to thrust kick him to get this out of his hands, and then I take it out of his hands, and I've successfully disarmed a second-degree black belt. The technique for defeating two black belts or second-degree black belts in a handicap match is you go ahead and attack the smaller fighter, in this case the 155-pound fighter, and get him in a front wrist lock or an inside wrist grab, or grab him by his gi sleeve, and then kick his guts out and keep his body between yourself and the heavyweight fighter until you tap him out by kicking him over and over again with unreturned strikes, and he eventually taps out because he can't take it. All right. And so then you throw him out of the way, and then you beat the heavyweight one-on-one. I used to do that during my black belt testing. All right. Because I was the most badass person in the dojo by then, other than Sensei himself. Um, and he was a 245 pounder, perfectly fit heavyweight, fourth degree black belt at the time. I have tested my punch on the force meter even after I became very ill, even after the same force meter that John Jones could only max out at 450 foot pounds on. On my very first attempt, I hit 650, and that was about 20 years out of practice. Um, like, no offense to Gabriel Varga or Jonathan Haggerty, but the other day I saw Gabriel Varga practicing and supposedly teaching you how to round kick and throw other kicks on a bag, and he was kicking his bag as hard as he could, and it barely even shakes the bag. And the same bag or a heavier one, I could front thrust kick and send it straight through the ceiling of his dojo. Okay, is how hard I can front thrust kick. And I'm not even lying or exaggerating. I can kick a standing water bag and send it clear across this room and make it slam into the other wall from over here. Airborne. All right. So if I told the people on that video that 135, 145 pound fighter is no threat to me and no threat to someone like Sean Strickland. I could train Sean Strickland to literally beat Gabriel Varga and Jonathan Haggerty both in a handicap match because he's still in the prime of his life. If I taught him some of the tricks I know, in addition to what he already knows, he could literally beat both of them at once in a handicap match. And they don't believe that, but I used to do it. All right. So I know it's possible. You're no threat to me.